All right, Mike,
so
we know you're on a timeline, Mike, so we have done a hyper-fast reset, so let's get straight into your segment so we can release you from the show. And I'm sorry that we're running late, Mike, so we'll try to get you back on schedule.
No, thank you very much. We're doing all right. I got about 15 minutes. So.
Cool. All right, let's kill the music and just go ahead and go straight into it.
Whenever you're ready, carry on.
Innovative clustering satellites to be tested at the International Space Station. It sounds like, what was that stupid swarm thing you were talking about? The swarm of, I was thinking because of swarm of satellites.
The Dyson sphere?
The Dyson
Call it Lego
That's
satellites
the
if you
thing
want.
I'm talking about. It's a stupid
No, I know you're not talking about, but you know what I'm saying. Okay.
Call it Lego satellites if you want.
Lego satellites? Lego sounds too much like LIGO, and then that could be really confusing. Okay, sorry. Do you want me to say that there's, because I feel like every time if we open this, say there's more news that we didn't get a chance to get to.
No. We're kind of doing these as standalone things at this point.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I introduced these as Spacepod last week.
Great. So I'll just do that then.
Sure.
That was a joke.
Oh, all right.
Fantastic. What day is this supposed to come out?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Welcome to your Tuesday Space Pod. And Mike, we're talking a little bit about what you jokingly called Lego satellites. Tell me some more about what's going on with the International Space Station and these things.
So yeah, at the International Space Station last week, some astronauts linked together some Lego satellites, or rather some modular satellites from a company called NovaWorks. And with these, it was a very interesting test, and it might be a very radical new approach to satellite design and manufacturing. So instead of fitting spacecraft components into some sort of spacecraft bus that companies have been doing for decades, NovaWorks invented what they're calling hyper-integrated satlets, or HISATs. They're identical 7-kilogram modules that have everything that you would need to function, including communications, being able to point your spacecraft where you need to, power, data processing, and propulsion as well. You can see those little nubs sticking out. Some of them are for connections, and some of them have RCS with them. So that's really cool. And what they can do with these is they can put together any number of these HISATs that they want. They measure 20 by 20 by 10 centimeters, so a little bit bigger than a CubeSat, but they snap together just like Legos, and you can put them together in all sorts of different ways. And what they did after years of developing this and ground testing, plus 2 years of storage on the International Space Station, this past week on October 25th, astronauts assembled a small satellite by snapping together 6 of these HISATs that also had 2 deployable solar arrays, which were built by a company called Pumpkin, and they also had an electro-optical imager that was a NASA-sponsored mission called the Satellite Initial Proofs and Lessons, or the acronym for that is SIMPLE. So just a simple test.
Of course.
But the astronauts, after they put that together on October 25th, they actually launched it from the ISS on October 27th using NanoRacks Caber microsatellite deployer, which provided a key test of how well these HISATs actually function as a single unit. Now, DARPA wants to launch 14 of these HISATs next year and enable further development of their Phoenix program, which would have, low-cost innovative space technologies, especially looking at having reusable technologies for satellites. And lots of really cool ideas could come from this. I mean, there's the unit itself that they deployed, and so far on the NovaWorks Twitter, they've been reporting that it's been healthy and that things have gone really well with this. So this could be a very cool, very innovative new way to put satellites together and kind of build custom-made spacecraft for whatever you want, and have a lot of redundancy as well.
That's really funny. I love it. The chat room's actually saying the Borg started this way. And I'm just wondering if that means we can get spaceship out of this. That's just, if I may. Well, thank you, Mike. Very much so appreciated. And if you're interested in any of these sorts of things and other spacey things, feel free to subscribe to our channel where you'll get videos like this and so much more. You can also join us live every Saturday at 1800 UTC. Yeah?
Mike, you happy?
Cut and print. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Great. Then we can get you out of here early.
All right, thanks, guys. Today was a good show.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mike.
We'll see you next week,
good
Mike.
job, Jared, for the interview. And Chris Prophet, thank you very much for joining us. And you definitely had some interesting insights.
Well, interesting thing to say. Whether they're insights, well, time will tell. Have you got a link to my book, by the way? I don't know if you've got that info.
Did we not do that at the end?
Oh, I don't know.
Chris,
no. I've just wondered if you've got a link to put onto your like website for the show.
Yeah, we should have a link for it.
Yeah,
though.
we'll put that in the show description.
We will, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Norm?
I don't worry about it. That it's not about the money. It's about getting the message out there. That's the most important thing. But people might want to, have a bit of read into it, because I had to sort of skip over some of the stuff about if you don't go through the age of discovery, you can't get to the new industrial revolution, sort of the interesting stuff.
Sure.
But, okay. Is Space Mike gone? Pity I could have had an interesting chat with him. And never mind, he's got a prior appointment, has he?
Yeah.
Sorry,
That's
I would love
okay.
to, but yeah, prior commitments. Sorry.
We had a hard out
Another
for Space
day.
Mike.
All right,
Another
everyone, have a
day.
great week, and we'll see you next time. Yes, hopefully we have you on again.
And by the way,
Okay,
by the way,
all right. Looking forward to it.
Chris,
okay.
you do not feel obligated, Chris, to stay on the line at this point. If you want to, by all means. But if you've got other stuff, the main show is done. We're kind of in After Dark, where we're recording our news segments for the next week and just kind of casually hanging around. So if you want to hang out casually, awesome. Otherwise, if you have other things to do on your Saturday or Sunday.
No, I cancelled because obviously, it's more important. So you're going to go on and do air stuff. Okay, well, I'll listen in for a bit. I ain't got anything else to do at the moment.
Cool.
It's been pretty interesting so far.
Well, we'll kind of, if it's all right, we'll kind of bring, once we get through the news section here, we'll kind of maybe bring you back in and see if the chat room has any more questions for you. All right.
This next picture that's in preview is really cool, and I want a shirt that looks like that.
Yeah, that is really cool. That's raw data too. So that's how we look. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Maybe you can bring that up.
I very well might.
I can talk a little bit about how we
Try not to
look
talk
at
too much over your crap, but
Look at and interpret astronomical data. So.
Interpolate?
Interpolation.
All right.
Jared, can I get some solo audio from you, please? Can you turn your mic on, please?
No, it was on.
No, it was not. It is now.
It wasn't? Oh, okay.
Yep, thanks.
Jeez.
I will say the
butt
switches on
turn it
these are
off?
so tiny, and I can't tell which direction either. Like, I know there's nothing you can fix.
Yeah, it's nothing I can do, but they're pretty hard to flip. So just turn them on and just don't touch them, and then if they accidentally flip, we'll just monitor that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, once
Okay.
they're on, no need to ever touch them again. Just leave them on.
Interesting. Maybe I butt offed it or something.
Yeah, you gotta
Butt
say
buttoned
that.
it or something. I don't know.
Let's track that. All right.
Okay. So this one's Thursday?
This is Thursday, correct?
Poor Jared, always second.
That's all right. I'm one day closer to Friday, so fine with that.
I like your title because there's not jack anything I can do with that.
Well, that's what everybody's doing right now, anyhow. So
It's just hilarious. I can't be like, oh, and this one is called what?
Do you want a new one? I can figure out.
No, it's totally fine.
That's what everybody's been doing this week,
It's just
anyhow. Everybody's just been like,
hilarious.
what? No. Hold on. Oh my gosh.
okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, so Mike's Spacepod's coming out on Halloween, huh?
Should have had him dress up.
He did dress up. He wore a collared shirt. You read those comments, right? Yeah. Okay, ready? Welcome back to the conversation. This is your Space Pod for Thursday. Jared, there's a lot of question marks in this title. What the Falcon is happening?
Okay, so every once in a while the universe kind of throws us a curveball, but this one's not really a curveball. This one's kind of like a fastball because it's a very fast object. So this is really bizarre. This is an actual one-of-a-kind object that's currently cruising through our solar system. It was spotted by the Pan-STARRS telescope.
This is the. Can I have this on a T-shirt, please?
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
And this is just data from. This is an optical view of that object that we're looking at from the Virtual Telescope project, by the way.
That's amazing.
Which is very cool. Which did not spot this object. It was spotted by the Pan-STARRS telescope. Which Pan-STARRS, for those of you keeping the acronym score out there, is the Panoramic Survey Telescope and Rapid Response System. Great acronym. And this telescope is specifically supposed to look for near-Earth objects. And the data from the observations of this object, which we initially called C2017U1, made no sense whatsoever. We found it at about 26 million kilometers away from the Earth, and the object is apparently outbound on its orbit, which is not unusual to find things that are on their way out from their closest approach to the solar system. But it was traveling at like 40 kilometers a second, and that's really unusual. This object is moving so fast that it's overcome the gravitational pull of the sun. It's not just outbound, it's leaving our solar system and it's never coming back. So what they did is they grabbed some more images of it and they figured out its orbital parameters, and it came in from nearly above the solar system, what we call the solar apex. And it came in at a velocity well above that of what we would expect of a typical comet. So that means that this could potentially be an interstellar object, something zipping through our own solar system, but its origins are outside of our solar system. Now, the difficulty of building up speeds as fast as this object is moving, just by natural interaction with objects in our own solar system, are extremely low. And as you can imagine, when they published the orbital parameters of this object, it caused a tremendous amount of attention to come towards it. And it currently has the highest, what we call orbital eccentricity of any object ever calculated within our solar system. And just a little quick thing to sort of give you some factoids. For orbital eccentricity is a measurement of how much a body in orbit deviates from a perfect circle. So if you have 0 eccentricity, you have a perfect circle. Anything between 0 and 1 is an elliptical orbit, which is basically what most things are in. 1 itself, 1 eccentricity, is an orbit on an escape trajectory, so you're outbound. Anything above 1 is what we call a hyperbolic orbit. That means you're not just outbound, you are like good and gone outbound. And this object has an orbit of 1.19, so it's above hyperbolic. Now, we called it C2017U1. Oh, here's a great animation of the object coming in. This animation lasts 500 years, by the way. It comes in and boom, it's out of here.
Dang.
So it just makes a complete about face. Now, we actually called this object C2017U1 as a cometary designation because of its orbit, but the observations that we've done so far show no coma, or material coming off and gathering around what would be the nucleus of the comet. So for the first time, we reclassified an object from comet to asteroid. So now it is a 2017U1. We're going to do additional observations by ground-based telescopes and the Hubble Space Telescope as well. They've gotten time on it. And early spectral data from a 2017U1 indicates that it is red in color, much like many of the Kuiper Belt objects in our own solar system, and its surface is relatively featureless. There's nothing that we can make out. It's not very big either. They haven't pinned down an exact size yet, but it's definitely under 1 kilometer in size. So it's not a big object. Now, there's likely been a lot of these kinds of objects that just come into our solar system from interstellar space and then zip through. But the thing is, they probably haven't come as close to the sun as this object has, which then allows it to reflect more light and allow us to actually see it. But it's a classic trajectory of what we would consider an interstellar object coming into the solar system and coming out. And this is what we would expect from the formation of a star and anything around it, because even when we model our own solar system, Jupiter and Saturn, they fling things out into interstellar space because things get close and they move at a fast enough velocity, they overcome the gravitational pull of the sun, and they get flung out. So this is not necessarily what we would call unprecedented in terms of does this actually happen? Yeah, it does. It's expected that interstellar objects are out there. It's just that we've never had the opportunity to actually look at an interstellar object. And this is very, very exciting. And it's going to give us a little, potentially, if it is an interstellar object, a little sample of what objects are composed of out there. And then we can look at that compared to what we expect with our models and see if our models are correct, modify them if need be, and go from there. So super exciting science happening in real time.
So for the T-shirt for this is like, I was a fan of A 2017 U1 when it was a C.
2017 U1.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty
All right.
good stuff. So
Cool. Just double checking. All right. So if this kind of information still interests you and lots of other spacey goodness, feel free to subscribe to our channel. And if you want more and would like to live and interact with us, feel free to join us every Saturday at 1800 UTC.
That's a wrap.
woo!
Sorry, that was really difficult for a minute
Let's
there.
roll the technology back
Got to
in.
say they should call it Rama. All right, well, that's, yeah.
What?
We'll
Rama?
figure that
Why?
out.
Rama?
Because there's a book written by Arthur C. Clarke about a alien spacecraft, or a assumed extraterrestrial spacecraft, literally taking that kind of a trajectory through the solar system.
Oh, yeah?
And the book's called Rendezvous with Rama because they call the object Rama. So.
Gotcha.
Jared, slide
Rama
your chair a
Lama
little
Ding
to the right. Carrie Ann, slide your chair a little to the left. Watch this magic.
Yeah, doggone it.
Rama
There's
Lama
actually a fun fact I learned this week is that because we've never
Jared's
seen
fun facts.
an
Jared's fun facts.
Jared's fun facts.
Jared's fun facts. Go on.
Is that like fun with
A
flags?
really cool thing that I didn't know this week that basically the entire astronomy community found out this week is that we have no nomenclature, no set standard of what to name interstellar objects.
At all?
Yeah.
Dude, how did you not like?
How does that work?
We've known that because of the stupid naming conventions that y'all come up with.
Blah
Yeah,
blah blah. But like really though, really none.
Yeah, none.
Just whoever like first. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna call something
Like,
Jerry.
Zappan is like mine.
So
Zappan.
Like, and then that's it.
we just it's never come up. So
It's
nobody ever
never
brought it
come
up. So nobody's ever been like, well, what specific thing should we name it after?
All right,
You know?
internet,
'Cause,
get
like,
on this.
it's not like there's nothing very specific. Like if you look at Uranus,
Right.
its moons are specifically named after characters from Shakespearean stuff
Right,
and
right,
things
right,
like
right.
that.
Right.
But we
Yeah.
just we don't have any. It's never happened before. We haven't had a need to figure this out. So yeah,
It's funny. I've just written a story called Corinne Star, and they name a star after one of the characters in the book. But she managed to scoop a little bit off a rogue planet which came from another star. So she said, I own this rogue planet, therefore I own the star, therefore it's going to be called Corinne Star, which is her name.
That's funny. It's kind of along the lines of people were talking about last week's some comments from last week's show. I can't speak apparently all of a sudden. Talking about like, look, whoever gets to Mars and stays there, quote unquote, owns Mars, which I wouldn't necessarily agree with in that particular way. You don't really like own Mars, but at the same time,
Ownership is 9/10, whatever that is.
Sure. No, I was going more towards the idea of sometimes when you talk with astronauts who have been on the International Space Station, and some questions will come up about like, hey, what's the deal with, Russians only using the Russian side, and, NASA astronauts only using the NASA side, and like what happens there, and like if and or when, really more likely, the NASA side's toilet goes down, like, do you just not use a toilet? Like, what happens there? And almost always, nearly without fail, every one of those astronauts has said, look, when you're up there, they can't tell you what to do. I mean, they can to a certain extent, right? But, like, if we want to swap snacks, because we're sick of eating whatever it is that we're eating, or I thought I would want tacos in space, but it turns out I didn't, and the Russian guys had fish, and it sounded amazing. Like, whatever it is, like, we do the things that we need to do in order to get along. That includes sharing toilets or whatever it is. And I think those same kinds of rules or lack thereof would also still apply on Mars. Like, look, you want me to do something very specific, or you want me to say something in particular on behalf of a government or an agency or anything along those lines, except that I'm the one here. I'm on Mars, so you need me to change something, you come over here and tell that to my face, and then I'll change it. See what I'm saying?
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody's in agreement.
Perfect. Good. I was like, either nobody was listening at all, or
No, we all agree.
No,
What
I'm
you
just
said made perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
sharing toilets is love. Thanks for that, Dutta. That's, I mean, I guess. Just as long as it's not
Space
that,
toilet.
that weird, like, couples potty that was on Saturday Night Live.
Oh my God. What was that called? Like the love,
The Love John or something?
That's a hard no from me.
Yeah.
I think it's a
Yeah.
hard no from everyone.
Yeah, I
which is
think
why
it's
it was
a
on
hard no
Saturday Night
from me,
Live.
It should be. Let's just put it that way.
You could hold hands while pooping.
Nope.
So, no, I don't think I want to.
So, Chris, I can't talk SpaceX, but was there other stuff that we didn't get to that you wanted to talk about? That stuff and things?
Oh, just generally towards the EELV, it's looking very likely that SpaceX are going to scoop some of that business. There's like 2 or even 3 prototype vehicles that they're going to fund. So, as Space Mike was saying, there've already been 3 tranches of money sent to SpaceX even before we get to this main ELV. Well, let's call it the next generation launch vehicle. So I think it's 90 million they're up to so far, and that's all money to develop the Raptor, which goes into the BFR. So it'd be very strange if the Air Force, helped pay for the Raptor and then said, "Oh no, the spacecraft. Well, what do we need that for?" No, I think they've got an inside straight for that one.
So here's a dumb question. Would you still consider Falcon to be an EELV, Evolved Expendable Launch Vehicle? That second E no longer seems to apply to SpaceX nor Blue Origin.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they've got to put EELV. They can't just say ELV, because that would be essentially excluding ULA and all these other sort of 20th century launch providers, shall we call them? We call them legacy. That sounds better, doesn't it?
I like Jason. He called it an ERLV.
Reusable.
Evolved Reusable Launch Vehicle, yeah.
Well, the thing is that it's not that I think much to Chris's point that the vehicle doesn't have to necessarily be reusable with the R that Jason put in there. Any vehicle that is reusable, in theory, could also be expendable. Those two are not mutually exclusive. However, if you are only using expendable, what am I trying to say? Non-reusable vehicles, right?
Sure. Whatever the customer wants, the customer gets.
Right, but I mean, it doesn't. It only goes that way. It doesn't go the other way, right? Like, if you've absolutely no way to be able to land your vehicle, it is inherently expendable. But if you can land your vehicle, you don't have to. It
seems like we need a new term, right? So the Evolved Expendable Launch Vehicle terminology came out in it was 90s, right? Anyone here remember? It was I want to say it was the next. It was for the Delta IV and the Atlas V.
I want to say that was started just after Challenger, because that was the catalyst for
80s.
a lot of this. So.
All right, so, but that was for the development of the Delta IV and the Atlas V, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's in the 8, right?
Yeah, right. Historian, Mr. Historian.
This one I don't actually know. I would guess it's probably late 90s, mid to late 90s.
I thought it was mid to late 90s, although after Challenger makes sense as well. So that means that it's about 3 decades old. So I feel like, okay, maybe it's time for a new terminology for this next generation of rockets.
1994.
Right? Oh, hey, I think I win. So, didn't I say like early to mid 90s? Boom.
But there were a lot. There was a very long period of government-funded studies before that, though. So.
Okay.
But the official requirements for the Evolved Expendable Launch Vehicle were published in 1994. That's when things were like have a go.
But we got ULA working on Vulcan, which is a next generation vehicle. It's going to be way better than anything they've got now. We got SpaceX working on all their new rockets. We got Blue Origin working on all their new rockets. These don't seem to fit. Maybe I'm mistaken, but these just don't seem to fit into the EELV, the Evolved Expendable Launch Vehicle classification anymore. There's so much more than they seem to fit those rules, but they seem like there's so much more than that now.
Yeah.
Seems like we need a new thing.
Cool.
Yeah, neat. All right.
All right, good. You get to work on that. Jared, there's a couple of questions from the chat room if you wouldn't mind addressing some of those.
Oh, right. Yes.
We'll have to bow out.
Sorry. Where?
The very bottom one or two.
From
That's what
YouTube?
I've got at the bottom.
Oh, that's cool.
All right, here.
Oh, thank you. Okay. All right. They're in the host channel? Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so B Fits from YouTube
Hit
wants...
red. Make it red.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Not thinking today.
There you go.
B Fits from YouTube, Chris, is saying, ask him how they're going to move the BFR from the factory. How are they going to do that?
Okay, now that's a good question. Originally, they said they were going to be putting, they'd be able to fit a 9-meter into the factory at Hawthorne, right? And we all thought, oh, right, okay, that makes sense. That really minimises the cost. But subsequent to the IAC, I believe they've said that they're going to be building their own facility down by the waterfront. Now that implies they're going to be moving it by ocean. You know, they've got a big port down there. I think it's a reasonable sized port. It's called the Los Angeles Port or something like that.
Yeah, it's a little big. Slightly large.
So they could probably handle it down there, shall we say. However, this is the big schema. They're going to be putting these floating launch pads. I'm pretty sure the first one is going to be off Los Angeles. So yes, maybe the first couple of BFRs are going to put on a ship and they'll drag it through the Panama Canal and haul it up on the beach at Boca Chica. But that looks like where they're going to be testing BFR first off. So I mean, there's been no financial support from the people on the Cape. So it looks like they're going to have to do it themselves, and they've got a clean launch site at Boca Chica. They'll put it there. However, in the future, they'll probably just float it out to that big floating spaceport outside Los Angeles and just fly it to wherever they need to go. Because once you're in orbit, I mean, nobody can complain about it because, I mean, shuttle used to fly over everybody's country, so it's all viable, and they don't have to pay shipping charges, just only methane. So it's short-term ship, and long-term it'll just ship itself.
I like that. So I'll definitely run down to El Segundo to take a look at that, wherever it ends up getting put. So that'd be pretty cool. Another YouTube question from Jim Burr. Question: what the Falcon happened to the awesome propulsive landings that SpaceX was aiming for on Earth? I'm not sure exactly what that's specifically addressing.
I've got a pretty good idea about that.
Now I remember.
Dragon,
yes.
Yeah, the Dragon 2. Where I mean, it was a hard business decision. Basically, they don't have a budget where they could just keep spending until they get it. NASA said, well, if you're going to drop a capsule from orbit and you want to land it on a sixpence, on a dime, then we really want to have some good sort of simulations, demonstrations, lots and lots and lots of forms to fill, and we're going to have nested committees and iterative, and SpaceX says, okay, all right, we've already thought of something better, so we'll just put it in the ocean, and everybody be happy there. So. And then they can put all that money they would have done into propulsive landing for Dragon 2, just go straight to BFR. Although BFR's got some problems, as if it turns up for the ISS, they got like 150 tons of food. They can't eat 150 tons of food, right? Or
could.
They could have 100 astronauts. They can't put in 100 astronauts in the ISS, so they might end up just doing one big sort of circuit, go out to the ISS and all the other private stations, and just do it all in one big hall, in one hall.
That'd be pretty entertaining. All right, guys, we got 1 ton of ice cream on this manifest. So,
Ready?
who's
Go.
Let's have a contest. Where was that one at that I had? Oh yeah, from Twitch, Jaded Animal is asking question: what is the closest distance such a spaceport could be to a city? So
we were talking about that before the show, weren't we? I mean, basically, the deciding factor is the sonic boom, because, I mean, this is the reason it's technology from the future. Again, this ballistic transport, because they tried it with Concorde, but if you fly a large supersonic aircraft over land, you have like miniature earthquakes. The glass falls out the windows and guillotines people's heads off, which, you know, they're just shaking their hands. Thank you, international traveller, for your for choosing to go supersonic over our city. So no, it's that supersonic effect. You want to get it right out in the ocean. I mean, I believe the space shuttle used to come in over land before it landed at the Cape, but hopefully they can get it coming in over the ocean. It'll pass through the sound barrier over the ocean, and then it will land relatively quickly after that. So it's going to be a reasonable distance out, because you're going to hear that it's a big ship, and soon as they go through transonic, they'll probably want to do that FTBA maneuver, flip it around and drop it on the pad fairly quickly, because
having experienced sonic booms.
I don't know. At least a mile, shall we say? Offshore.
Yeah, that's usually that's a reasonable distance. I know Dutta and I have experience with sonic booms from shuttle returning here in LA. I don't think you guys were here in LA by the time of that, and I do remember they were. You definitely knew shuttle was coming in. You were. I remember one distinctly waking me up when that happened. So.
You'd have to try real hard to not hear it.
Yeah, it was one of those things too where.
How do you try to not hear something?
Like you put earplugs in, you put your head under a pillow, you go into a soundproof room.
You'd have to be in a room in a building that is multiply isolated from outside air sources or any kind of compression.
So the opposite of this studio.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Because we can feel the train go by and it just kind of rumbles the whole building and everything kind of shakes a little bit. And you go,
every
train.
time the train goes by, I always have to be like, train or earthquake?
Right.
We know that, but they don't, because we have high pass filters that everything. We are right next to a train track, and like every 15, 20 minutes, there's this like rumble that comes through this whole building, and we have the microphone set to cut those frequencies out.
Yeah.
So you have no idea they're occurring. But we're in here just think, I'll be interviewing a guest. I literally think to myself, train. Sorry, anyhow.
Yeah.
There is something I'd like to add though about thing. Of course, when you're transiting between one country and the next, there's no supersonic wake because it's in space. It's only when it lands that you'll have any sort of it'll announce itself. You'll know when the BFR has arrived. All right.
Incoming spaceship, bam, bam.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. The BFR has arrived.
I was supposed to go pick up my friend coming from Shanghai today. Did you set an alarm? No, I'm just waiting to hear it. So, all right.
Well, yeah, but you've only got 35 seconds to go get him now.
The alarm set itself.
Yeah. So another question.
That's funny.
A question from Uncle Bill. Is the Boca Chica pad large enough for BFR? And will the EPA approve BFR launches from there? I seem to recall there were some limitations.
Oh, absolutely. Spot on there. I believe it's like 6 Falcons, 6 Heavies, but things are negotiable. I mean, say SpaceX go to the lawmakers in Texas and say, well, look, we we just don't know what to do with BFR. We don't know whether we should launch it from the Cape or do it from Texas, and they'll be like, we'll double it. Whatever they offer you, we'll double it.
So I want to go. to
EPA's funding just got cut. I'm sure they'd be willing to get some more money for a little more allowances.
Oh, maybe something can be worked out.
I mean, that happens with Southern California Air Quality Management District too. Is you have to pay for, let's say you own a company that does painting. Painting in California is a big no-no because of the toxicity of the chemicals involved, and so every business kind of as a standard is allowed a certain volume of VOCs or whatever, and then anything over that you have to pay for it. And so there are penalties involved, but if you've got the money, you can use all the toxic chemicals you want. You just have to pay for them.
I mean, there is a point here that Boca Chica isn't an ideal site because it's basically alluvial silt that you can go down hundreds of meters. It's just silt that's washed down the Rio Grande, so you haven't got a very good footing there. So they might go somewhere else or somewhere nearby, somewhere a little bit further along the coast with a bit better footing. But it's a great site because you've got Brownsville Harbour there, and the sea actually, it sort of impinges on the site. So if they wanted to build their own harbour there, all you have to do is dredge and throw down a bit of concrete. It's pretty good otherwise. I think they fixed the footing problem because they just put piles of earth and compacted it down basically. So it can be done, but although if they put BFR there, it could quite possibly, the pad complex could stretch most of the way to Mexico. It's going to be big.
I got one for you, sort of going in the same way with launch pads, which is that InSight, an upcoming NASA Mars lander, is going to be launching from Vandenberg. It's going to put it into a polar orbit and then go from there because it has the capability to do that. Do you think, is that something that may end up happening with BFR? They may actually, Vandenberg probably not, because you were talking about they're going to use the landing areas from point to point as sort of launch pads as well. So would that be a potentiality?
It seems likely because when they go around to this Mars time, are they going to ignore this massive network of launch capability they've got around the world? Say, oh well, no, we've invested all this time and money, and so it seems probable, but there's nothing official on that. Yeah, they could launch Polar out of Boca Chica. The only problem is it's going to be passing over land, relatively quickly. Because, well, let's see, it's Colombia is due south, and that rocket's going to be shifting. So, whether they want to do that or not, I don't know.
Hey, Chris, I think we're losing your microphone. It's going into that weird buzzing state again, unfortunately.
Okay, no, I think I've got it. I think I found out where the buzzing was coming from. Is it clear now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Yeah, I thought that was me.
Right,
so.
I fixed it.
It's like, what's going on?
No, I was doing some work online. Right.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? Have I answered your question?
There's a lot of talk of the supersonic part, and I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding. So going back to Neuropilot's question, although it's a statement, the supersonic aircraft lays down a boom and not just a transonic transition. But it's important to understand the difference between a rocket going, a supersonic rocket, and a supersonic aircraft. For example, satellites are supersonic, but you don't hear sonic booms from satellites every day. And the reason you don't hear sonic booms from satellites every day is because they're not in our atmosphere. There's no air for them to be creating said sonic boom. And I think that's your point, right? Is that
no, that's spot on. I mean, nothing to add. In space, nobody hears you wee as you go across.
Right. So there will be supersonic. There will be sonic booms when a spacecraft is going faster than the speed of sound and is within atmosphere, right? There's enough atmosphere for it to compress and create the boom. But
and understand the speed of sound at a higher altitude is also much, much faster than it is at a lower altitude.
Right. So you have to take those things into account. And I think your point is, unlike Concorde, where you've got this plane that's like traveling through atmosphere, essentially horizontally, creating this boom across whatever it's transitioning over, that's not necessarily how a spacecraft would do it. and I am not speaking on behalf of SpaceX, I'm speaking just in general, a spacecraft will create that sonic boom when it transitions into supersonic speed along, while it's through atmosphere, but then it's going to stop creating that boom. And then let's just say it comes back. It's only going to create that boom once it enters back in. It's going to create it around that area. So unlike shuttle, which was transiting over a bunch of land, a rocket may not do that. And if it's landing out at sea, that boom is going to be confined to that area out at sea.
Yeah, and somebody was also talking about sonic booms at launch as well. There is a sonic boom generated at launch, but it's expanding out and up, so it doesn't come back down to the ground. So. Just so that you're clear.
I mean, basically, what you're talking about is a sonic wake, and you're just not going to get that in space. But it's probably moving some particles around, but it's just nothing. It's not. You're never going to be able to hear it unless you've got some, Star Trek type instruments on Earth. Yeah, I mean. This is BFI. I was saying it's like technology from the future. About 2050. That's about the period you'd expect this ballistic transfer. It's just so way future, because if you have a supersonic aircraft going through the air, you're continually expending energy just to ram the air out the way, because it can't get out the way fast enough, and that's what causes the boom. But as soon if you have a BFR, all you've got to do is get into space, and you can just cruise there. You don't have to have any thrust whatsoever. They might have a little bit of thrust on the ballistic transits, because if you think about it, they'll take off. You'll have some relatively high G, maybe up to 1.3 G or even more than that, and then you'll have a period of 0 G. A lot of people are just going to want to unbuckle and just float, find out what it is, and then the last 5 minutes, could you please find your seat again? So that's 500 people, with the bottoms in each other's faces, trying to get back to what is my seat number? That's mine, So I think they're going to buckle them in, and they're probably going to keep a little bit of thrust running all the time. So they've got a little bit of acceleration, which it has the effect of gravity. Otherwise, things could get really. People are not trained for space. They don't know how to do 0 G combat or maneuvering or whatever they end up doing. So I think they'll just buckle them in and keep a little bit of thrust going. That's my perspective, anyway.
That was all.
Hello.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you're fine.
We hit a moment of awkward silence. Welcome to the awkward part of the show.
I wonder how...
Was it the bottoms in the face expression? I knew I went too far there.
I wonder how loud a BFR is going to be. Because I know out at Vandenberg, you can be 15, even 20, 25 miles away from a launch and still able to hear it really easily. I remember even... the lead up to the first Delta IV Heavy flight out of Vandenberg, they had to do studies to make sure that the acoustics actually wouldn't affect Lompoc out there, to make sure they wouldn't wreck anything.
Well, the sound will also be dictated by the marine layer and the cloud cover, will it not? Like at Vandenberg, you're going to have a really low cloud layer that a really low and thick cloud layer that the engine noise could potentially bounce right back off of.
Yeah, that was something they had to think about. They also had to think about if it goes boom too.
Oh, sure.
All of those very energetic noise all of a sudden. Yeah, there were some questions about that. So
I remember the last space shuttle STS-135. It was, I believe, the lowest cloud deck they had ever launched through, which was amazing and awful at the same time, because it was amazing because we had covered.
Was it 35?
I think it was 135.
Yeah, 135 was the final one. It was overcast.
No. I know it was the final one.
I'm near positive it was 135 because all the media was there, and there were all of those tents. And we saw.
But for 35, we were right next to the tweet up tent.
Right.
I think it was 34 or 33. They were next to. It was a foreign news entity, and we watched all of the things flutter.
I'm near positive that was 135.
I don't think it was.
I'm near positive it was 135.
So Doka in the chat room has an answer for you, Jared.
Which is
Loudest Falcon.
So it was 135, and it was because all the media was there, and that's why all of the different.
I don't think it was.
Okay, so
I believe you, but I don't think it was.
But all right, I can probably prove this to you.
Okay.
Oh boy, here we go.
Just.
Even if Ben is right, we're not going to bring it up on the screen. So.
Oh well, we can't, so it doesn't matter.
So, the sonic wave of...
No, we were just, so the whole point of that was we were mentioning how different the sound from that one shuttle launch was because
the sound
we had
bounced
seen,
off the clouds.
Right,
and
we
came
had seen
back
so
at
many
us.
shuttle launches before that. We had covered them, blah, blah, blah. And then like this one shuttle launch, we were like, whoa, holy cat. And like you could see the sound waves, like you said, hitting the tent and just like
You watched
rattling
the
through the
ripples
tent.
of
It was
everything.
incredible.
Well, that happened when I was at the second Iridium flight for SpaceX out of Vandenberg. The winds were blowing offshore, and the sound was significantly reduced from that. It was probably the
Interesting.
quietest launch I've ever been to.
Yeah, I
I could
suppose.
literally talk like this and have out and drowned out the sound. And then
Wow.
you go back to the third Iridium flight just a couple weeks ago that we were at, and it was all kinds of loud as heck.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think 134 was your load cloud deck.
I'm looking at pictures of 135, and it was definitely a low cloud deck on 135.
That's cool. I don't think it was 35. I'm near positive it wasn't.
Well, 133 was clear as day.
All right,
I remember
then,
that.
Then it might have been 134, but I really don't think it was 35.
The reason I think it's 135 is because I remember thinking to myself, because it was the shuttle went whoop, right into the clouds.
That was 134.
Thank you. I really don't think it was 35.
So let me just jump on.
Because that would mean your parents were there. I don't think it was. I don't
jump
think
on
it was
this
that one. I think
Space
that was the
Vidcast
last
channel
one.
and check.
I think that was the last one that we saw Astra Gurley on site, possibly, and or Flying Jenny. Like there were a couple of space tweets that we had seen for 32 a long time ago, and then there was like the last time we saw them on
134. Right here.
I mean, hard to say.
Yeah,
'cause-
but I
because
need
here's
to
the
see
cloud
it after
cover.
it launched.
9, 8, 7. All 3 engines up and
Yeah, 35 was almost a weather scrub. Yeah, that's way too clear. I think it was 34.
The final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
I mean, we're
Not really on
already.
the shoulders of the space shuttle, because the space shuttle program was over at that point. That's a terrible way to.
Now controlling the flight of Atlantis.
Yeah, you might be right, because that seems like it's way too high. We wouldn't have been. Well, they went on board.
Turning into history.
All right, let's look at 134. Yeah, 134. I mean, tracking should lose it, or they'd have to go on board. Oh, hey, look, my own coverage.
Hey, weird, our own coverage. I can't imagine. That seems really strange.
Oh
Why
my
would
God,
we
why
ever
didn't I
want
edit
to do
this down? What
that?
was I thinking?
Good God, yeah. Why didn't you edit that down?
7, 6.
You can see the.
Yeah, you can see the thought process. Ben.
0 and liftoff for the final launch of Endeavour.
Is that actual
Expanding our knowledge,
velocity and everything on there, by the way?
Ish.
Ish. Gotcha. Close enough.
Here's a photo from 134 from the press area.
Houston is now controlling.
Well, they both went, and then they went on board. They both did the same thing, so hard to say. Yeah, okay, and show me 135. Work, Donna, work! Here's the other problem is like we're like, oh hey, all the tents, because it wasn't just the tweet up tent, it was the media tents. Those tents were there for 135.
Yeah, but we had a tent for 35 and we did not for 34, and I'm near. I mean, I would.
Ready?
Yeah,
Ready?
yeah.
Well, that kind of only sort of helps me. Go back. Go back. That doesn't really. I wish we had one that
Really?
was at the same.
That doesn't really.
No, they're not at the same. No, it doesn't.
They're very similar perspectives, man. 135 had a kind of a overcast thing. There was clouds up high, but the ceiling on 134 was much lower.
All right, it was 134 or 135. How about that? We spent way too much time on
I
this.
got a perspective for you guys. Memory tends to make up its own story. You have the facts, and then your memory sort of makes up a story about what happens, and that's not always. Well, it's.
I just make my own stuff up regardless.
Sort of form.
All right, I was kicked out of the chat room. Let's see here. Yeah, we were so stable last week. This week, not as much.
Not so much.
Nope. Let's see if I can get in. Are we winding down?
It was 1:30, Ben is wrong.
It was 1:30?
It was 1:30,
This
Ben is
story.
Wait, I don't think we were at 1:30.
Yeah, I don't think we were either.
Yeah.
As a joke, 1-30-Ben- is bad wrong.
Oh, y'all.
That's
All right,
dedication.
I can't get into the chat room anymore, so we're done with that. And any final comments, guys? Are we done? We wrapping?
I think I'm good.
Oh, my chat room died.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll leave us on. I'm wearing bright purple. I'm testing out.
Yeah, it's definitely, that's way too off to the side.
Yeah, so, right. So I'm testing out shirts for use in the swag store. The logo is going to be made a little bit smaller, not a lot, just a little bit smaller, and pulled way over because it's too far off to the side. So I've got another new batch coming. These are all long-sleeved because the cold season is coming, so I figured long-sleeved. By the time we're ready to deploy, it'll be November, December. But I also am looking at short-sleeved shirts as well. Sleeved, yeah. You never heard me say that? The chat. Why? Not that I can look at the chat room, but they're kind of like, "What is going on?"
They also don't want you to look at the chat room, by the way. They're talking about you now that you can't see.
I hate them so much. It's archived, people. I can go back and look at the chat room archives.
But he doesn't. so
Winter
it's
is
okay.
coming. Winter is coming. All right. On that note, I think we're done. Chris, thank you so much for taking. Do you want to pimp your book really quick? I know it's on Amazon or whatnot.
Enjoyed it. Oh, you're embarrassing me. You're making me commercial. I don't know. It's just called. It's called SpaceX from the ground up. It's the 4th edition you're looking for on Amazon. All right. It's only 3rd edition at the moment as a paper product. So you really want to get it on Amazon to get the up-to-date stuff. Okay, that's it. That's all I want to say.
Well, yeah. Wait. Hang on. Here's a question for you. When did the 1st edition come out?
Okay, it came out. It was like 1st of April, I think it was, around there in 2016. It was basically just a lead-in. People like screaming, want to know what was going to happen at the IAC 2016. So I'd done quite a bit of research and worked out the finances. So I thought, I'd put it together as a book and show people what to expect. And we had a few surprises, but that's good. And it's funny because it seemed that whole IAC 2016 was most of it was for NASA's benefit. They got in the seniors. They showed them the presentation before the show and said, "Whoa, isn't this good?" And NASA was like, "Whoa, how much payload to Mars? 450 tons, 100 people. We're not, maybe in 100 years we might need something like that." But now, and I said in the book, well, they could possibly do this themselves. They have the finances, and it seems that's what they defaulted to now. They say, okay, well, if NASA's not going to come in on it just yet, I'm sure they will be at one point or other, then we'll just carry on with our financial plan, putting commercial satellites up there, helping anybody who wants to launch, and put it together ourselves. So it's all golden, basically. But that was 18 months ago, and I'm on my 4th edition now because the new stuff just keeps coming. It's not like looking at like an old a legacy launch provider where they're trying to keep it more the same than the last launch than every other launch. Every time it's just like there's something new happening at SpaceX. They're really pushing the limits.
So now your next challenge. I want you to write a book about Blue Origin because it's so hard to get information out of there.
Information.
So
it's
hard.
Impossible.
I know.
Maybe I could hack them via Amazon. I don't know.
All right. I also
Okay.
it's a little incredible that you've had 4 editions in 18 months. That's kind of That's abnormal. That's unheard of.
That's also dedication to
that's
making sure you got it right, and that's great. So
when's the 5th edition coming out?
So, well, I've actually been thinking there's a few things, but I errated them during the week just to make it, copacetic. But next IAC, I'd say, because he always likes to give you an update. I mean, things just keep changing around. I love it. It's good. But I was researching SpaceX just for my own, for my own interest for like years before I wrote the book. So I could basically write that book in 10 weeks because I already had all the information available. Well, I thought I had until I tried to find the references, and Googling stuff, finding all those old references is just like impossible. So, but I got there in the end, 10 weeks. It was a good job.
All right.
But now I've done another 18 months. Oh, dear. Yeah.
All right, so I think we missed that in the main show, so we'll make sure to add a link to that in the description of the show notes for the show itself.
So
yep.
Yeah, people can look at it because I go into a lot more detail. I strip down their finances, show exactly how much they're going to be making this year in the long run, how it all factors together, the alternate contingency funding plans, and of course everything that happens on Mars, how it's going to be phased. I mean, the interesting thing is that in my first book, I sort of pointed out the fact that they've got a little bit of a problem. If they send one ship to Mars, well, if anything happens on that ship, then the ship is actually more important than individuals on board, because it's like an old-time sailing ship. If the ship sinks, everybody dies. So you're in a position where people have to sort of sacrifice themselves to keep the ship in one piece. So, but that's not right. These people are invaluable. That you're never going to get a replacement. These are very highly skilled engineers. So now in this IAC presentation, they say, well, we're going to send 2 ships. So they have options now. It's good. And also, hopefully, they'll be able to sort of push out one of their emergency shelters as well, a geodesic dome, something like that. So it's good. And they're going for the self-funding, so they have final say on everything that goes on the ship. They don't have like where the shuttle had, where they had the Air Force saying, well, we've got to have this capability, and NASA saying, oh, right, well, we'll have all these nested, so many committees. The first committee will be at what sort of refreshments and biscuits we've got to have for the second committee, and stuff like that. No, they're just a bunch of engineers get together, say, what do we need? All right, we'll do this. All right, this is the best way forward. All right. So is that a question? Yeah, it's good.
Well, I was gonna,
Kindle. That's right.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Last question for the show is the book available on Kindle? But I assume so because it's on Amazon.
Yeah, I think if you have Kindle Prime, you get it for free.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you haven't got a Kindle reader, I believe there's an app you can download so you can read it on your PC or laptop or whatever you use, basically. So I have to pay for the book, of course, but I'm working on that.
All right, I think that's our show. I'd like to thank Chris. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday. We'll get this posted in the next 24, 48 hours, and I'll let you know when it goes online. I appreciate the really rapid turnaround for coming on the show this week. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
I love talking about SpaceX. It's my favorite subject. So, just glad you could have me. It's really been fun. Although, next time, Space Mike, he managed to evade my questioning there. I don't know.
All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching online. Have a good one. I'm excited for next week's show. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.